Good morning everyone. Today we'll be studying physiology of human eye. Physiology is a branch of biology that deals with the normal function of living organism and their parts. The normal function of eye is to form a clear image of stimulus on the surface of retina. This is the midline view of eye. The various structures of eye translate light into images. We know that the outermost dome-shaped transparent structure is cornea, and behind that the brown structure is iris, and behind iris is lens. The most innermost structure is retina, which is the neural layer, and the light enters through cornea, it is refracted, and then it passes through the lens, which converts the light and focuses it on the retina. Now the image formed on retina is inverted and laterally reversed. The stimulus are sent through optic nerve to the brain. The occipital lobe in brain reads the signal and gives a correct orientation to the image. In previous lecture, we had seen the various parts of the eye. The first part is eyelid. It forms the outermost part of eye. It helps in reconstitution of tear films, maintain integrity of corneal surface, maintain proper position of globe within the orbital contents, regulate amount of light entering eye, provides protection from airborne particles, and covers eye during sleep. Coming next to conjunctiva. It helps to lubricate the eye by producing mucus and tears, and it also contributes to immune surveillance. Cornea is a transparent structure and it forms principal refractive surface, and it also acts as a barrier protecting eye from outer environment. It has 5 layers which we have studied in previous lecture, namely the epithelium, Bowman's layer, stroma, Descemet's membrane, and endothelium. All of these layers act together to maintain transparency of cornea. Let's take one by one each of them. Cornea is covered by tear film. It is known as the precorneal tear film, and precorneal tear film is responsible for the transparency of cornea. In conditions associated with tear film abnormalities, there is loss of corneal transparency. In conjunctiva, there are basal cells which are connected to themselves and to the superior wing cells through desmosomes and zona occludens, which are very tight junctions, and they act as a barrier maintaining transparency of cornea. Below the epithelium is stroma, in which there is regular arrangement of the lamellae which maintain the corneal transparency. There are two theories to explain it, the Morris theory and the theory of Goldman. According to Morris theory, there is regular arrangement of collagen fibrils so that the scattered light is destroyed by mutual interference. Also, fibrils are regularly arranged in lattice and they are separated by a distance less than the wavelength of light, and this is responsible for the transparency of cornea. However, according to the Goldman theory, the size of the fibrils is so small in relation to the light that they don't interfere with the light transmission, and hence cornea is transparent. But both Morris and Goldman theory fail to explain loss of transparency in cases of clouding of cornea and acute rise of intraocular pressure. This can be explained by the hydration theory, which we will be taking after this. Now, cornea is avascular structure, and because of this cornea is transparent. It has only small loops which invade peripheral 1 millimeter, which provides the nutrition to the cornea. Now, cornea is kept in a dehydration state because of the negative imbibition pressure. Now whenever the imbibition pressure is positive because of rise in intraocular pressure, there is hydration of the cornea. Now there is barrier function of epithelium and endothelium which act as a semi-permeable membrane and don't allow solutes and to enter, and also prevent entry of water. Whenever intraocular pressure is more than the swelling pressure, there is corneal edema. And also because of evaporation of water from the precorneal tear films, there is increased osmolarity relative to cornea, and this causes dehydration of cornea. There are active pump mechanism in the endothelium. Various pumps are there: sodium potassium ATPase, bicarbonate dependent ATPase, carbonic anhydrase enzymes, sodium hydrogen pump, which keep endothelium and cornea in a dehydrated stage. This is endothelium, and the pump pumps out water out of the cornea, keeping cornea in dehydrated stage. In endothelium, there is a regular and hexagonal arrangement of cells. Now keratocytes, which are source of collagen, the enzymes required for matrix assembly are encoded by genes of keratocyte for post-translation effect, and any defect in the genes causes. Now coming to crystalline lens, its function is to refract the light and to do accommodation, which is focusing on objects, near objects. Now these two pictures show accommodated and non-accommodated state. Now let's see what is happening inside the eye. This is contraction of ciliary body. Lens is becoming thick. Now ciliary body is relaxing, lens has become thin, contracting, lens thick. There is bulging of the lens capsule. Ciliary body relaxed, lens flat, contracted, lens is thick. You can see the zonules are lax and lens is quite thick. The dioptric power of the lens increases in when it is thick, then when the ciliary body is contracting, and with this helps in focusing of the near objects. Now when ciliary body relaxes, the zonules become tight. This causes flattening of the lens and we can focus distant objects. This flattening and thickening of lens occurs because the lens capsule is plastic and lens is elastic, and this occurs in young stage only, that is less than 40 years. After 40 years, this plasticity and elasticity of lens is lost and they are not able to focus near objects, and this sets in presbyopia. Now coming to aqueous humor. Aqueous humor brings oxygen and nutrients to the cell of the lens, cornea and iris. It removes products of metabolism, provides optically clear medium for vision, inflates globe, protects against ultraviolet induced oxidative products, and facilitates cellular and humoral responses against inflammation. Now let's see inside eye how it is produced. It is produced from the ciliary processes, comes into the posterior chamber, and through the pupil it comes into the anterior chamber and is drained through trabecular meshwork. These are the various pores in the trabecular meshwork, and aqueous humor is then absorbed into the suprachoroidal space. Now the production and absorption of aqueous humor should be equal so that the intraocular pressure is maintained. This is required for the normal inflation of the globe and for the nutrition of the eye. Coming to retina, it absorbs photons of light, translates light into biochemical messages, and these electrical impulses are then carried to brain through ganglion cells. To understand the function of retina, we must know the microscopic structure of retina. It has 10 layers and 2 functional components, namely the pigment epithelium and the neurosensory retina. There is a potential space between these two components that is known as the subretinal space. The mnemonics to memorize the 10 layers of retina is: in new generation it is only ophthalmologist, examine patient's retina. I stands for inner limiting membrane. N for nerve fiber layer, G for ganglion cell layer, I for inner plexiform layer, inner nuclear layer, outer plexiform layer, outer nuclear layer, external limiting membrane, pigment epithelium, photoreceptors and retinal pigment epithelium. The light enters the eye, stimulates the retina, the various retinal layers. It causes stimulation of the photoreceptors. There are two types of cells, that is the rods and the cones. The impulses from rods and cones pass to the bipolar cells and then to the ganglion cells. The fibers of the ganglion cells converge at the optic disc and their fibers collectively form optic nerve, which takes signals to the brain. Now there are two types of cells, more cells, horizontal cells and the amacrine cells. Horizontal cells, they receive stimulus from various cones, and signals from horizontal cells go to the bipolar cells, and from bipolar cells they are taken up by the amacrine cells, and from amacrine cells they go to the ganglion cells. Now let's come to cone cells, which are responsible for photopic vision and the color vision. Now the body of cone cells has mitochondria and various discs, and there is a nucleus, and these are the synapses. Now these cone cells are found in macula, and they are abundant at the fovea, and in the retinal periphery the cone cells are very less, where rods are usually seen. Now this is macula, and in the center of macula there is fovea, where the concentration of cones is highest, and in the retinal periphery the amount of cones are less and that of rods are high. Now there are three types of cone cells. The S cells, M cells and the L cells. There is a pigment that is known as photopsin in the cone cells, and these cone cells are responsible for the color vision and the photopic vision. The three types of cones are the S cells, S cones, M cones and the L cones. In visual spectrum, S cones are responsible for short wavelength, M cones to detect medium wavelength and L cones for large wavelength. Now this is the visible spectrum. We all know that it is represented by Vibgyor: violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange and red. The blue is the short wavelength area, green is the medium wavelength, and red is the long wavelength area. These three colors are mainly identified by the cone cells, and we can remember it by the RGB, that is the red, green and blue. The S cones detect the short wavelength, that is the blue colors. M cones detect the medium wavelength, that is the green colors, and L cones detect the long wavelengths, that is the red cones. These three are the primary colors, and by various permutation and combination, millions and millions of colors can be detected by the brain, and these are known as the combination are known as the secondary colors. The same way as it is in the printer, we put in 3 dyes and we can have n number of colors through various combinations. Waltz visual cycle. Now this occurs in rod cells. We have seen there are two types of photoreceptors, the rods and the cones. The visual cycle occurs in rod cells. Now this is the structure of a rod cell. It has long disc area, few mitochondria, and the disc contain rhodopsin. This rhodopsin, on stimulation from light, gets converted into metarhodopsin 2, and this breaks into opsin and 11-cis retinal. And this metarhodopsin is responsible for neural transmission. Now let's see in detail what is happening to the molecule rhodopsin. This rhodopsin on stimulation by light is converted into luminorhodopsin, which is then converted into metarhodopsin 1. This is converted into metarhodopsin 2, and this breaks into opsin and all-trans retinal, which is then processed by two pathways, one in the eye and one in the liver. Now let's see what happens in eye. It has to get again converted into 11-cis retinal for its conversion to rhodopsin. Now in eye what happens is, all trans retinal is converted to 11-cis retinal through retinal isomerase enzyme, and this 11-cis retinal and opsin again forms the rhodopsin. While in liver, alcohol dehydrogenase enzyme converts it into all trans retinol, which is again converted by isomerase enzyme into 11-cis retinol, which is then converted into 11-cis retinal through alcohol dehydrogenase. This is the whole cycle of Waltz cycle, and this you must remember. Now let's see how metarhodopsin develops nerve impulse. Now this is the rod cell. There are various disc, nucleus and footplate. This is the nucleus, and in the cell membrane there are various pumps and channels. This is sodium potassium ATPase pump, which pumps out sodium ions and pumps in potassium ions. There is another channel, that is ungated potassium channel, which causes leakage of potassium ions. There is a gated sodium channel, which allows entry of sodium ions, and because of this a hypernegative charge is developed inside the body of rod cell. There are calcium channels, gated ones, near to the axon, and because of entry of calcium into the rod cell, there is release of glutamate. Now what happens is that the metarhodopsin stimulates transducin. The transducin stimulates phosphodiesterase enzyme, and phosphodiesterase enzyme converts cyclic GMP into 5-AMP. And because of this conversion, there is decrease in the concentration of cyclic GMP, and because of this the gated sodium channels gets blocked, and because of this there is leaking of potassium ions, and this leads to hyperpolarization of the cell, and because of hyperpolarization the calcium channels get blocked, and because of this the release of glutamate is stopped, and this leads to generation of nerve impulse by stimulation of bipolar cells.